The autumn in Boston was breathtakingly beautiful. Which city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And hey, make sure you watch till the end. Something's going to happen that you won't see coming. The trees lining the Charles River had turned vibrant shades of red and gold, glistening in the crisp morning light, but Elodie Taylor had no time to appreciate the scenery as she hurried toward the entrance of the Boston Museum of Contemporary Art. As usual, Elodie was respected by her colleagues and expert curator in the museum's contemporary sculpture department, known for her sharp eye and intuitive aesthetic sense. Her slender frame was tucked into a tailored navy suit, one she'd inherited from her late father, David. Her neatly styled brown hair and contemplative eyes made her a recognized figure in the art world. As she pushed through the glass doors into the museum's lobby, her phone buzzed. The screen lit up with one word, Mom. She hesitated before answering. Good morning, Mom. I'm sorry, I just got to the museum. A glamorous, slightly high-pitched voice came through. Elodie, you remember dinner on Friday, don't you? Scarlett is coming back to Boston too. It'll be a proper family evening for once. Elodie sighed softly. Of course I remember. I promised I'd be at the Brookline house at 7, didn't I? Wonderful. And I need you to bring some company documents to sign. I've got them, Elodie replied flatly, ending the call and stepping into her office. She sat at her desk and looked out over the city skyline. It had been 11 months since her father, David Taylor, passed away. The inheritance matters had cracked the facade of what once looked like a close-knit family. David had been a titan in real estate development throughout the Boston suburbs. Taylor Properties was a household name. He often said the company belonged to the whole family, but in his will, he left Elodie the management rights and the lion's share of the assets. Elodie, the exhibition meeting is in 10 minutes, her assistant Jennifer called softly, poking her head into the office. Elodie nodded and gathered her papers. Work and family, those two worlds refused to stay separate lately. That night, back at her apartment, Elodie stood in her kitchen with a glass of wine in hand, gazing out at the glittering skyline. Her phone buzzed with a message from Maeve. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Elodie smiled faintly. The smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Her relationship with Scarlett had always been complicated. Her sister was stunning, effortlessly charming, and had a magnetic presence. Elodie, on the other hand, had always been the quieter one, more at home with marble and canvas than people. After their father's death, the distance between them only widened. The next evening, Elodie pulled up in front of her mother's house, a classic white colonial tucked into the quiet of Brookline, the home where she had grown up. As she opened the door, she was greeted by the scent of perfume and something delicious roasting in the oven. Elodie, welcome. Her mother, Carol, called out. Hazel, with her perfect blonde waves and effortlessly elegant outfit, was the very image of New England grace. She kissed Elodie on the cheek and smiled. I made your father's favorite roast beef. In the dining room, Scarlett stood waiting, wine glass in hand. With her flawless features and glowing blonde hair, she resembled Carol far more than Elodie ever had. Maeve had just graduated law school and recently started working at a prestigious firm in New York. Big sister. Scarlett hugged Elodie. It's been ages. New York's been insane. I haven't had time to come home. The three of them sat down. Carol poured the wine, her smile thinning just slightly. The house feels so empty without David, she said. But life moves on. Elodie nodded. Yes, Mom. So, how's the company? Scarlett asked, her voice holding a hint of challenge. Elodie took a small sip of wine. It's going well. We've just started a new development project in Brighton. That's wonderful, Carol replied. Her tone carried a strange note to cheerful, almost mocking. Your father would be thrilled to see you at the helm, Elodie. Elodie met her mother's gaze. Under Carolie's smooth words, she could feel the discontent pulsing like a second heartbeat. Hazel had barely been involved in the company before David's death, but once the will was read, she'd started insisting on a larger role, claiming, quite suddenly, that she'd been a co-architect of Taylor Properties all along. Did you bring the papers? Carol asked. Elodie reached into her bag. Yes. But Mom, signing this finalizes the sale of the North End property. This isn't just a formality. I know. Carol waved a hand. That property's always been a headache. Better to sell. I disagree. That area's about to boom, Elodie said, her tone steady but firm. It's not the right time to sell. Maeve rolled her eyes. You're always too careful, Elodie. Sometimes you've got to take a little risk to see real returns. But hey, you've got the management rights. Hazel reached over and gently placed a hand over Elodie's. Just remember your father and I built this together. Listen to the family too, sweetheart. Elodie said nothing, but deep down, a quiet alarm was ringing. She had uncovered discrepancies in the financials, questionable transfers, vague expenses. The company looked stable on the outside, but something was rotting beneath. I'll think about it, she said quietly. Hazel pressed her lips together but said nothing more. Scarlett switched the topic to her New York life, and the rest of dinner passed pleasantly on the surface. But an invisible weight pressed down on the air between them. As Elodie stepped outside to leave, Scarlett glanced at her car. Isn't it time for an upgrade? She asked. How long have you had this thing? 5 years, Elodie answered. Still runs fine. Maeve cocked her head. Really? The brakes sound a little off. Kinda risky to be driving this on the highway. Thanks for the concern. Elodie forced a smile. I was planning on getting it checked soon. On her way home, her sister's words echoed in her head. Now that she thought about it, the brakes had felt a little odd lately. She decided to bring it to the shop first thing tomorrow. The next morning, Elodie got into her car, ready to head to the museum. As she turned the key, the engine started up like normal, but something felt off. Reversing out of the garage, she pressed the brake and the pedal sank lower than usual. That's not right, she muttered, pressing it again. It felt spongy, unresponsive. Maeve's voice flashed through her mind. Isn't it dangerous to drive this on the highway? Elodie called the museum, letting them know she'd be late. Then she slowly made her way to Mike's Auto Repair, her regular shop, a no-nonsense place tucked in an industrial corner near downtown. She had been going there for years, ever since her father first introduced her to the owner. As she pulled in, John Ramirez emerged from the garage, wiping grease from his hands onto a rag. His salt and pepper beard and warm eyes made him a familiar and trusted face. Elodie, been a while. What's going on? Hi, John. It's the brakes. I didn't notice anything until yesterday, but this morning they feel totally off. John nodded, taking the keys. All right, grab a coffee while I check it out. In the waiting area, Elodie sipped coffee and scrolled through emails. 30 minutes passed before John returned. His face was unusually serious. Elodie, he said, voice tight. Can you come take a look? An uneasy feeling crept up her spine. She followed John to the back of the workshop where her car sat hoisted up, the tires already removed. John pointed under the car. This right here? This is your brake assembly. And you see this? He gestured to a conspicuously empty space. Elodie peered closer. Yeah, what's wrong? John frowned. There are no brake pads. What? She asked, blinking. They've been removed, he said gravely. Cleanly. This wasn't wear and tear. This was deliberate. Elodie stared, stunned. Deliberate? Are you sure? John gave her a long, quiet look. It's not something a novice could do. It takes tools, knowledge, intent. Her thoughts raced. Who? Why? No one had touched her car, at least. Not that she knew of. Did anyone else have access to your car recently? John asked carefully. I went to my mom's place yesterday, but I parked out front. I don't think anyone. Elodie, he interrupted gently. This isn't just a maintenance issue. This could have killed you. If you'd been on the highway, you might not have made it. Her breath hitched. Can you fix it? Of course. I've got the parts. It'll take an hour. But he hesitated, placing a hand on her shoulder. You need to think about who did this. You might want to go to the police. Elodie nodded absently. I just remembered something. Last month I installed a dash cam. It was from my dad's old car. I haven't checked if it's working, but maybe. Let's check it, John said, already heading for the car. He retrieved the small camera from the windshield and popped out the SD card. We'll view it in the office. Back inside, he slotted the card into the computer. Let's see what we've got. Elodie held her breath. The screen showed footage from the previous night. Elodie parking her car outside her mother's house, locking it, and heading inside. Nothing happened for a long stretch. This is when I was having dinner, she murmured. John fast-forwarded. Then the footage flickered and 2 figures emerged, Hazel and Maeve. They looked around before approaching the car. Carolee's face was cautious, glancing down the street, while Scarlett opened the driver's side door. The audio was faint but clear. Hurry, Carol whispered. Elodie's inside. We have about an hour. I know, Mom, Scarlett replied. The tools are in the back seat. Elodie watched, frozen. As Scarlett popped the hood and Carol carried over a small toolbox. The 2 of them knelt and disappeared under the car. 15 minutes later, They reappeared. Perfect, Scarlett said, wiping her hands. Now the plan will go just as expected. If there's a serious accident, everything will be taken care of. Hazel's voice followed, icier than Elodie had ever heard. Dad's inheritance, the company, it'll all belong to us. Maeve clapped her hands and laughed. Elodie couldn't move. Her chest tightened, like her lungs forgot how to breathe. Her mother and sister had planned to kill her. John sat silently beside her, jaw clenched. Elodie, she stood suddenly, walking to the window, her body trembling, mind swirling with confusion, rage, and heartbreak. Can you copy that card? She asked, voice remarkably calm. John nodded. Of course. As he worked on duplicating the footage, he looked at her with concern. You should take this to the police. This is attempted murder. Yes, she said. But there's something I need to do first. He stopped. What are you talking about? Can you fix the car today? And please don't tell anyone what you saw. I can, he said slowly. But Elodie, what are you planning? She turned to him, eyes steady despite the storm inside. I'm going to make them face what they've done. Not just with words. John's voice was low. Don't do anything reckless. I won't, she said softly. You'll have the car ready? John hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I'll start now. While he replaced the brake pads and flushed the lines, Elodie sat quietly, staring into nothing. Waves of emotion washed over her: shock, grief, fury, but under it all, a sharp thread of resolve began to form. The car's ready, John finally said. I replaced everything. It's perfectly safe now. Thank you, she whispered, taking out her wallet. Please be careful. You sure you don't want me to go with you? Or call the cops? Not yet, but I have the copy of the footage now. I can go anytime. John nodded, still clearly worried. Promise me you'll stay safe. Elodie gave him a faint smile. You fixed it perfectly, right? He gave a soft chuckle. Yeah, but that's not what I meant. She thanked him again, then called the museum to say she'd be out for the day. She returned home, made a cup of tea, and sat in silence for a long time. Then, she picked up her phone and dialed. Mom, she said brightly when Carl answered. I just had an idea. How about we all go to the mountain cottage this weekend? The three of us. Just some family time. It feels like we've barely seen each other since Dad passed. A pause. That's sudden, Carol replied, her tone carefully neutral. Did something happen? No, Elodie said, her voice cheerful and light. I just feel like we should be closer. It's been a hard year. I see, Carol said after a moment. All right, I'll check with Maeve. Thanks, Mom. I'll drive. Oh, are you sure? How's your car? The tension in Carolie's voice was subtle, but it was there. Elodie smiled to herself. There are a few quirks, but it's fine. I think it'll make it to the mountains just fine. The next morning, Elodie parked in front of her mother's house. She knocked on the door, and Scarlett answered, looking effortlessly polished, her makeup pristine, her outfit impeccable. Good morning, big sis, Scarlett said brightly, pulling her into a hug. Elodie felt the slightest tremble in her sister's arms. Where's Mom? She's just finishing up inside, Scarlett said, stepping back. She should be out soon. A few minutes later, Carol appeared in the entryway, wearing a tailored coat and pearls. Elodie, thank you for organizing this, she said warmly. I'm really looking forward to it. Our first proper trip in a while. The three of them got into the car, Elodie behind the wheel, Carol in the front passenger seat, Scarlett in the back. As Elodie adjusted the mirrors, she glanced at Maeve's reflection. Her sister was staring blankly out the window, lips slightly parted, tense. Let's get going, Elodie said casually. It's about 2 hours to the cottage, but the view should keep us entertained. The car pulled out of the city and toward the winding roads of the countryside. Conversation drifted in and out, light and polite, but under every word was a crackling tension, like static just waiting to spark. After a while, Elodie cleared her throat. By the way, she said as if remembering something offhand, my car's been acting kind of weird lately. Maeve's eyes flicked up in the rearview mirror. Her jaw stiffened. In what way? Carol asked, her voice even but wary. The brakes, Elodie replied. They feel soft, like they're not catching properly. You should get that checked, Scarlett said quickly, her voice a touch too sharp. It could be dangerous. I was thinking the same. I might take it in when we get back. Silence followed. The car hummed down the road as the terrain gradually turned mountainous. The road narrowed, twisting through sharp bends and rising slopes. A sheer drop lined one side, barely shielded by a low guardrail. We're coming up on the steep curves, Elodie said calmly. Dad always used to be extra careful here, remember? Hazel looked out the window nervously. Elodie, maybe. Slow down a bit, it's fine, Mom, she said gently. I know this route like the back of my hand. As the first tight bend came into view, Elodie pressed the gas slightly harder. Elodie. Carolie's voice rose. You're going too fast, brake. Elodie made a show of stomping the brake. Oh no, it's not working. What? Maeve's voice rang from the back seat, tight with fear. The brakes, Elodie cried out, feigning panic. They're not responding. The curve approached fast. Carol clutched the door, her knuckles white. Scarlett let out a panicked gasp as she grabbed her seatbelt. Elodie, do something, Carol screamed. At the last possible moment, Elodie sharply turned the wheel and smoothly navigated the bend. The car stayed perfectly on the road, but she didn't let up. Still nothing, I can't stop it, she shouted. Another curve came. Again, she handled it perfectly, masking her precise control under a veil of chaos. Hazel and Scarlett were in full-blown panic. Carol dug her nails into the seat. Scarlett had tears in her eyes. Elodie, please. Please do something, Scarlett begged, nearly sobbing. I'm trying, Elodie shouted back, keeping her tone wild. For minutes, the car danced dangerously through the twisting road, each turn amplifying their terror. Elodie stayed calm, calculating. But her mother and sister were coming apart. Finally, after the third curve, the road widened. The incline gentled. Elodie gently brought the car to a stop on the shoulder. Silence settled over the car like a blanket soaked in dread. Hazel and Scarlett sat frozen, their faces pale, their breaths ragged. Elodie turned off the engine, unbuckled her seatbelt and slowly swiveled to face them. Her eyes were cold. Scared? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Neither responded. Carolie's lips parted, but no words came. Scarlett clutched her armrest as if it were the only thing keeping her grounded. Elodie reached into the glove compartment and retrieved a small SD card, holding it in her open palm. This is the dash cam footage, she said. It clearly shows both of you removing the brake pads from my car. Maeve let out a choked noise, like someone who'd just realized they were falling off a cliff. You said, if there's a serious accident, everything will be taken care of. Isn't that right, Mom? Hazel covered her mouth with trembling hands. This car? Elodie continued. It was repaired yesterday. I had the footage backed up. I could take it to the police right now. Maeve's voice cracked. The police? Elodie looked at her sharply. What exactly should I listen to, Maeve? The reason you decided killing your own sister was a solution? Hazel finally found her voice. Elodie, please, there's more to this. There are circumstances. We didn't want to, Elodie said bitterly. You crawled under my car with a toolbox. You planned it. You wanted it. Before you go to the police, Carol pleaded. Let us explain. After that you can decide. Elodie stared at her, long and hard. Then slowly, she turned off the engine completely and leaned back in her seat. Fine, she said. Talk. Hazel took out a small handkerchief from her purse and dabbed the corners of her eyes. Elodie, we're in financial trouble. Elodie narrowed her eyes. Taylor Properties is solvent, and Dad's inheritance, no. Carol cut in, her voice filled with pain. Your father had secrets. Maeve leaned forward, her face drawn. Let me explain. Dad drove the company into a huge crisis in the 2 years before he died. There's over $4 million in debt. What? Elodie blinked. The reports looked clean, Scarlett continued. But they were doctored. He was addicted to gambling. He lost everything in illegal casinos downtown. Hazel nodded, her voice barely audible. He never told anyone. He was too proud. He hid it, borrowed from shady lenders, made risky investments. After he died, they started coming for us. Why didn't you tell me? Elodie interrupted, trying to keep her voice from shaking. I managed the company. I could have helped. We were ashamed, Carol whispered. You seemed so distant, always so absorbed in the museum, in your own world. We didn't think you'd understand. You never asked if I'd understand. I thought you didn't care, Carol murmured. David always favored you, but he left the business part to me and Maeve. You had your art. We had this. Elodie gave a hollow laugh. You think I didn't care? I've been studying the company for months. I've been taking online business courses trying to help. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know it was this bad. Meave looked stunned. You, what? I noticed the discrepancies a few weeks ago. I was going to talk to you both, but then, you tried to kill me. Hazel's voice cracked. We were desperate. We thought, if something happened, your insurance could cover the debts. We didn't want to, but you did, Elodie snapped. You were ready to trade my life for a payout. A heavy silence fell again, broken only by the wind rattling softly against the car windows. Elodie closed her eyes. How much? Hazel and Scarlett exchanged a look. About 4.5 million, Scarlett said. Elodie opened her eyes and stared ahead. Numb, Elodie closed her eyes again. The number echoed in her mind like a thunderclap. $4.5 million. The legacy her father left behind wasn't just a successful company but a mountain of hidden debt, betrayal, and heartbreak. Why didn't you come to me? She asked. Quieter now. We're family, weren't we? Hazel looked down. You always seemed far away, Elodie. Wrapped up in your art, the museum. Your father put so much trust in you, but he never told you what he was hiding. That's not true, Elodie said, her voice flat. He left me the company. That meant something, and I took it seriously. I've been working hard to fix what I didn't even know was broken. Meave looked up, her eyes red. I didn't know you were studying the business. You never said. Of course not, Elodie said. No one ever asked. She reached into the center console and tapped the SD card sitting in her palm. This could send both of you to prison. Hazel shut her eyes and exhaled shakily. I know. Meave bowed her head. Please, Elodie. We were drowning. We didn't see any other way. We were wrong, so wrong, but we were terrified. Elodie looked at them, her face unreadable. I have conditions, she said finally. Hazel and Scarlett looked up sharply. If you follow them exactly, Elodie continued, I won't go to the police. The air grew still. First, she said, both of you will start therapy, weekly sessions, especially you, Mom. What you considered doing isn't normal. Hazel nodded silently, her hands trembling in her lap. Second, Elodie continued, I want complete transparency about the company. I want access to everything: debt lists, outstanding balances, creditor names. No more hiding. Understood? Scarlett whispered. And third, Elodie said, her voice firm now, you will both support my plan to rebuild the company. No more gambling, no reckless moves. You follow my lead from now on. They nodded again, too stunned to argue. And finally, Elodie added, you'll start community service. You'll look into the eyes of people who've been hurt by selfishness and desperation. You'll earn back the humanity you threw away. A long silence followed. Carolie's voice finally broke through it, small and hoarse. You're a better person than us, Elodie. If it had been me, I don't know if I could have forgiven. Elodie didn't flinch. I didn't say I forgive you, not yet. It'll take time to rebuild that, maybe years, but we're family and I'm willing to try. Meave was openly crying now. Thank you for giving us that chance. Elodie turned the engine back on. Let's go home, she said. We've got a long road ahead of us. As they descended the mountain, each woman sat deep in thought. In Elodie's chest, the storm of anger and grief hadn't passed, but a fragile light had begun to emerge. Hope. Rebuilding the company would be difficult. Rebuilding the family might be even harder. But Elodie had made her decision. 1 year later, a large hall buzzed with the hum of conversation and soft music. Guests clinked glasses and admired the elegant decor. A sign at the entrance read, Parker and Taylor Properties, 40th Anniversary Celebration. Elodie stood at the podium, calm and poised in a fitted black suit, her hair swept back. She looked over the crowd with confidence. This past year has been one of transformation, she began. We've faced hardships, hard truths, and through it all, we've emerged stronger, more united. Applause rippled through the room. To the edge of the crowd, Carol stood with a glass of champagne in hand. Her features had softened. Her shoulders, once stiff with pride, now carried humility. Months of therapy and volunteering at a local women's shelter had changed her. Meave stood nearby, laughing softly with 2 employees. She had used her legal background to build the company's first in-house legal department. Gone was the arrogance. In its place stood a young woman focused, collaborative, and quietly humbled. Elodie continued from the stage. My mother now manages real estate valuation. My sister heads legal affairs, and I remain focused on design and strategy. Together, we're forging a new path forward for this company and for each other. The applause returned, louder this time. As the celebration wound down, Elodie offered her mother and sister a ride. They slipped into her new car, the same seating arrangement as the day of the mountain confrontation, Hazel in the passenger seat, Scarlett in the back. But this time, the atmosphere was entirely different. Are we really going back up there? Scarlett asked nervously. It'll be fine, Elodie smiled. I want to make some better memories in that place. The road to the mountain cottage was just as winding as ever, but the terror that once clung to each curve was gone. At the cottage, they poured wine and sat on the deck, the sunset casting golden light across the hills. The sustainable housing project starts next month, Carol said, her voice hopeful. The mayor's on board. Maeve opened her laptop. I cleared all the legal hurdles. Your design is finally going to happen. Elodie raised her glass. To new beginnings. They toasted quietly, the air soft and still. As twilight deepened into night, Elodie sat back and watched the stars appear, one by one. Forgiving and forgetting are different, she thought. She would never forget what they did, but forgiveness had given her something she never expected: peace. Power.by choosing restoration over revenge, Elodie had found her own strength. The next morning, the three women drove down the same mountain road again, Elodie behind the wheel, Carol beside her, and Scarlett in the back. The same seats, Scarlett said with a half smile. But a whole different vibe, Elodie nodded. Yeah, and I've got an idea for our next big project. Oh, Carol asked. A collaborative artist studio and residents, low-income housing meets community creativity. As the car rounded a gentle curve and the sunlight streamed through the windshield, Elodie smiled. The road ahead, finally, felt open.